3 weeks ago, I sold the house my daughter thought she would inherit. The same house I nearly broke my back to pay off. I sold it 4 days after her wedding, the one I wasn't allowed to attend because she hired private security with my photograph in their hands. They were instructed to treat me as a stalker, not an estranged father, not a grieving widower who raised her alone, but a threat. I still remember how it felt reading that text. Like my heart got scooped out with an ice cream scoop and tossed into the trash. But let me start at the beginning, because none of this makes sense unless you know what I gave up for my daughter and how deeply her betrayal cut. My name is Frank Latimer. I'm 61 years old, born and raised in Bozeman, Montana. I was a maintenance supervisor for over 3 decades, steady work, honest work. My wife, Alyssa, died from breast cancer when our daughter, Tessa, was just 11. From that moment, she was my whole world. I worked double shifts so she could go to college without debt. I skipped meals so I could send her money during grad school. When she wanted an apartment closer to campus, I paid the rent. I bought her a used Subaru when she graduated, cash. Never missed a single parent-teacher conference. Never forgot a birthday. I was her everything, or so I thought. Things started to change when she met Carter. He's 33, works in finance, whatever that means. Carter's from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. His family owns resorts and talks about legacy wealth like it's a personality trait. His mother, Evelyn, once ran for the local arts council and lost. She's been treating everyone like underachieving peasants ever since. I'll never forget the first time I met them. It was at their backyard barbecue in Jackson. Carter looked me up and down like I was a farmhand who'd wandered in from the woods. He laughed when I handed him a six-pack and said, "Old school. My dad would have loved you." His mom smiled without showing teeth and said, "So, Frank, are you retired yet? Or still working?" When I said I was still working full-time, she blinked. "How admirable." Tessa didn't defend me. She just stared at her wine glass. That was the first crack, but I ignored it. Love makes you blind, especially when it's your child. Then the engagement came. The ring was the size of a gumball machine trinket, and Carter's family offered to pay for a classic mountain wedding at a private lodge near Big Sky. I congratulated them. I even offered to help with the rehearsal dinner. But that's when Tessa started to pull away. She told me not to wear my usual work boots to the engagement party. "People there won't understand," she said. Then she said my suit was too off the rack. She suggested I get something tailored. I laughed it off at first, until one night she called and said something I'll never forget. "Dad," she said, "Carter's family has standards. His mom saw your Facebook photos, and she thinks you need a makeover." I agree. I asked what that meant. She had a list ready. Lose 30 pounds, get my teeth whitened, take etiquette classes, and buy a $2,000 custom suit from a boutique in Jackson Hole. She said Evelyn was willing to pay for the teeth whitening as a gift, but the rest was on me. "If you want to be part of the ceremony," she added. Like it was an optional club I needed to audition for. I told her I wouldn't do it. She snapped. "You never cared about what's important to me. You've embarrassed me my whole life. I'm tired of explaining why my dad works with his hands instead of wearing a suit like everyone else's father." That's when she said it, the thing I'll never forget. "I love you, Dad, but I'm ashamed of where I come from." That's when something inside me cracked, like a bone snapping under too much pressure. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I just hung up. 2 weeks passed after that call. I didn't hear from Tessa. No apologies, no backtracking, just silence. Then one morning I get a text. It was short, cold, almost corporate. "You can attend the wedding if you agree to sit with extended family in the back row and avoid appearing in any reception photos. This is a compromise. Please be grateful we're including you." Grateful. She was treating me like a liability, a stain to be managed. I stared at my phone for a long time. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness, from clarity. That was the moment I decided, she doesn't get to have it both ways. If she's ashamed of where she comes from, she doesn't get to inherit where she came from. So I started planning. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I made phone calls. I called a real estate agent I trusted, my buddy Cal from Bozeman, who helped me buy the house back in 2007. I told him I was thinking about selling. The market was hot. My neighborhood had become desirable. Young couples from out of state were snapping up properties like crazy. Cal told me I could get nearly $500,000 if I played my cards right. Next, I called a lawyer, an estate planner. Her name was Maggie, sharp as a tack, and didn't flinch when I told her why I was there. I need to revise my will, I said, and remove someone. We spent 2 hours going through every document, my life insurance, my pension, the 529 education account I'd been building for future grandkids I hadn't even met yet. I removed Tessa from everything. The wedding was a week away when I listed the house. But I told Cal one thing: I want closing day to be 4 days after the wedding, not before, not after, 4 days exactly. He looked at me funny. Just trust me, I said. There's a reason. Then the final blow came. 2 days before the wedding, I get a text. It was a screenshot from someone I didn't recognize at first, one of the hired security guards. The message read, "Hey, just a heads up. I thought this was messed up. Your daughter gave us this and told us to memorize your face. Said you're banned from the venue, that you're emotionally unstable and might try to crash the wedding. You're flagged as a potential threat." They used the word stalker. Attached was a photo, my driver's license photo. She gave them my license photo. She didn't just want me gone, she wanted me discredited. I didn't reply. I just saved the image, filed it under insurance, and poured myself a glass of whiskey. I didn't even touch the glass. I just stared at the amber liquid and thought about all the birthdays, all the band concerts, all the nights I stayed up fixing a leaky faucet or driving 3 hours in the snow just to see her for a 20-minute visit during college. She wanted to erase all of that, turn me into a villain. Fine, I could play that role, because the hero in this story, it wasn't her, not anymore. 4 days later, I signed the sale paperwork and handed over the keys to a young couple from Seattle. They were nearly in tears. It was their dream home. And the price? $485,000. 60 grand more than I ever thought I'd get. Tessa found out the next morning. The messages started rolling in at 3 a.m. First a text, "Who did you sell the house to?" Then, "Why didn't you tell me you were selling my future home?" Then she called. I didn't answer. So she texted again, this time from Carter's phone, "We need to talk." Now, and oh boy, when I finally picked up, you wouldn't believe the audacity of what she said. Ready for it. I finally picked up the phone around noon. It was Carter's number, but her voice came through like a storm. "Dad, what the hell did you do?" I let her scream for a bit. I wanted her to empty the tank. She ranted about how she had relied on that house being her inheritance, how she'd already told Carter's family it was in the bag, how she felt betrayed. That word betrayed almost made me laugh. I waited until she was out of breath, then I said calmly, "I sold the house because it was mine to sell, just like it was your choice to bar me from your wedding. Actions have consequences." She went silent for a beat. Then came the next blow. "Okay, fine, but what about your will? You still have other assets, life insurance, your pension, the college fund. I'm your daughter, Dad." That's when I told her. "I updated everything. You're not in the will anymore. Not the life insurance, not the retirement accounts, not even the education fund for your future kids." Dead silence. Then, "You're doing this to punish me." "No," I said. "I'm doing this because you told strangers I was a stalker. You had security guards memorize my face. You humiliated me in front of people I've never met. And then you expected me to hand over a house, a future, and my peace of mind. For what? So Carter's mommy wouldn't be embarrassed at the reception?" She tried to pivot. "I didn't mean any of that. It was just I was under a lot of pressure. Evelyn wanted to keep the guest list clean. Carter's family—" I cut her off. "No. You made a choice. You chose them. You chose their money, their image, their judgment. You don't get to cry foul now." That's when Carter got on the phone. This man, who had never worked a day without his uncle's help, had the gall to tell me I was stealing from his future children. He said Sabrina deserved her inheritance regardless of our disagreement, and that removing her was emotionally manipulative. Then he said his mother, Evelyn, wanted to schedule a mature sit-down to resolve things. A family meeting. I laughed. I couldn't help it. He didn't like that. "Look, Mr. Latimer," he said, voice stiff, "Sabrina is your only child. That house should have gone to her. You've made your point. Now let's be reasonable. We're willing to include you in family events if you're willing to show better judgment moving forward." I took a deep breath. Then I asked, "What does better judgment mean, Carter?" And he actually laid it out. I was to apologize to his family for past behavior. I was to attend etiquette training. I was to reinstate Sabrina as my sole beneficiary, as a gesture of reconciliation. The nerve. That's when I leaned in. "Carter," I said, "you expect me to finance your lifestyle while being treated like the help. You think I owe you for marrying my daughter? I owe you nothing. In fact, I'm just getting started." He laughed, but it was tight, nervous. Sabrina got back on the phone, her voice was softer now, pleading. "Dad, please don't do this. I didn't mean for things to go this far. We were just trying to protect our image. I still love you." I asked her something then. "If you had to choose, right now, between rebuilding our relationship or staying married to Carter and keeping ties with his family, which would you choose?" There was a pause. A long one. Finally, she whispered, "I can't leave him, he's my husband." I nodded to myself. "Then you've made your choice." But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd already started digging. And what I found buried beneath Carter's perfect little family was darker than I imagined. I wasn't just going to cut them off. I was going to expose them. You want to know the truth about Carter's family? They weren't rich. Not really. They were leveraged. See, after that phone call, I got curious. Too many smug comments, too much flaunting, not enough substance. Something didn't add up. So I did what any pissed-off maintenance supervisor with a chip on his shoulder and a Wi-Fi connection would do. I started digging. Public property records, business filings, real estate transactions, social media breadcrumbs. It was all out there. Turns out, Carter works for a commercial real estate firm run by his uncle, Weston. But he's not a partner. He's not even management. He's a glorified paper pusher who gets to slap the family name on his LinkedIn. Their so-called empire, a deck of credit cards. I found multiple properties under the family's name, but almost everyone had an inflated mortgage or a home equity line stacked on top. They were leveraged to the hilt. The main house in Jackson Hole had a mortgage over $800,000, and they'd taken out another $200,000 in equity just last year. Their mountain, Getaway, had been on and off the market for nearly 2 years. No buyers, priced too high to cover the debt. But here's the kicker, that $200,000 wedding. The one they held at the private lodge with the designer floral arch and the violin quartet flown in from San Francisco. They paid for it on borrowed money. I traced 3 newly opened credit lines under Evelyn's name and found business filings that showed Weston had taken out a high-interest loan against the real estate firm right before the wedding. It was a house of cards. And I knew just where to blow. I made a few calls. First, to the catering company, then the venue, then the luxury transportation service. Just casual inquiries with helpful tips about the family's financial profile and upcoming litigation involving the firm. Vendors don't like getting stiffed, especially for 6-figure events. Some were still waiting on final payments. I didn't lie. I just pointed them in the right direction. Then I called the credit card companies. Again, just to provide publicly available information about the firm's legal troubles and their debt-to-income ratios. Within 2 weeks, Evelyn's credit lines got slashed. I know because she posted a Facebook rant about unjust persecution of small-town elites. Delicious. But I wasn't done. Because tucked deep in those court documents, I'd been reading about Weston's real estate firm was something explosive. A lawsuit filed by former investors. They alleged fraud, inflated property valuations, falsified appraisals. It was all starting to smell like mortgage fraud. Serious charges. I sent anonymous tips to local journalists, to 2 state investigators, and to a few real estate regulatory boards. I even uploaded a timeline of suspicious transactions to an anonymous legal watchdog blog. Sabrina called me in a panic after vendors started hounding them. "What did you do?" she screamed. "They're saying we owe tens of thousands, that the firm might get audited." I didn't say much, just one thing. "You should have picked your villains more carefully." She started crying. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you like this. You were right. Carter, they all lied to me. I didn't know about the lawsuits." That's when I realized she really didn't. Carter had hidden everything from her. The debt, the legal risks, the shady business practices. She married a lie, and I had the receipts. But the biggest twist, I hadn't even dropped the final hammer yet. Because Carter wasn't just working at a corrupt company. He was personally involved in the fraud. It was 2, 8:30 a.m. when I sent the message. A long, quiet text that landed like a nuke in Sabrina's phone. I'm the one who exposed your husband's family. I told her everything. The evidence I'd compiled. The documents I'd turned over. The anonymous tips. The vendors I'd warned. The private investigator I'd hired. Yes, I used some of the house sale money for that. He'd been following Carter and Weston for 2 months, gathering proof. Mortgage fraud, appraisal rigging, falsified loan documents. It wasn't just shady business, it was felony-level crime. And Carter, he was in it up to his neck. Turns out he personally signed off on multiple fraudulent appraisals. He wasn't just following orders, he orchestrated some of it. And he got paid bonuses tied to those inflated deals. I told Sabrina all of this. And then I told her the part that hurt her the most. I have donated the college fund I saved for your future children to a scholarship for working-class students. Kids whose parents fix boilers and mow lawns, kids like you used to be. The phone didn't stop buzzing for the next hour. Sabrina's texts came fast and panicked. Dad, please stop. You've made your point. You're destroying lives over one wedding. James is freaking out. Their accounts are frozen. The firm might collapse. Please don't do this to us. I didn't know any of this. Then Carter texted, from a burner number. You smug old bastard, you'll regret this. You're messing with things you don't understand. I replied with a photo the investigator took of Carter handing an envelope full of cash to a loan officer under a parking lot camera. Then I blocked him. But the real show. That unfolded publicly. Evelyn made a desperate post on Facebook begging for legal help, claiming they were being targeted by jealous, bitter people. The comments filled with local contractors, ex-employees, even former friends. One woman wrote, "You mean the same bitter people who bought homes at inflated prices based on your rigged appraisals?" Ouch. Weston tried to claim it was all a clerical error. But that excuse fell apart when the state attorney general opened an investigation and the IRS got involved. Carter's bank accounts were frozen. The firm's website went dark. Their fancy mountain home was suddenly listed as must-sell motivated seller. Then, the ultimate humiliation. Carter and Sabrina's wedding photos were used by a local newspaper to illustrate an article titled, "Fairytale Weddings, Fraudulent Foundations, The Crumbling Empire of Weston Granger Real Estate." They became a case study in greed. And me, I was never mentioned, not even once, because I'd played it smart, quiet, legal. Sabrina called me again a few nights later. She wasn't angry anymore. She sounded hollow. "Dad," she whispered, "I lost everything." Carter's facing criminal charges. Evelyn's been crying for days. Weston's lawyer quit. And she choked up. "I know I messed up. I let them turn me against you. I wanted so badly to fit into their world. I thought if I could just leave the past behind, I could be somebody." I said nothing. She continued. "But all I did was lose the only person who ever truly gave a damn about me." Finally, she asked, "Is it really over? Can we fix this?" I waited a long time before answering. Then I said, "You didn't just shut me out of your wedding, Tessa. You buried me. And now you're asking me to dig myself out so I can save you. That's not how this works." "You made your choice, I just made mine louder." She cried. "I didn't," I hung up. "Today I live in a quiet apartment overlooking downtown Bozeman. No mortgage, no noise. My investments are solid. My will is clean. And for the first time in my life, I sleep like a baby. Not because I got revenge, but because I reminded a group of cruel, arrogant people what happens when you spit on the wrong man. Sometimes the trash you throw away was holding your whole house up. Thanks for sticking through this journey. If you made it this far, I have one question for you. What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more real stories of betrayal and brutal karma.